Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor. With me today is my co-host, John.
Hello. Well, good to be back.
And with me today from Tridentine Brewing is Trevor Alcorn. Welcome.
Thanks, Connor. Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me on.
We're glad to have you here. So we're going to talk about all things brewing, Catholic culture, and Tridentine Brewing, and we'll see what comes out. And I'm very excited. So I wanted to start off with something, just kind of maybe give us a general idea on, what inspired you to do this? What's the bit of history of Tridentine Brewing?
Word from our affiliate, Bishop Sheen Rosaries. You've probably worn through the chain of your cheap plastic rosary. Other rosaries simply can't stand up to the wear and tear of everyday life. Bishop Sheen rosaries are made of solid metal beads and paracord to withstand any condition, and are backed with a lifetime warranty. Upgrade your rosary to a Bishop Sheen rosary made to fit your lifestyle, or buy one for a friend. Each rosary sold supplies 2 weeks of food for a school kid in Uganda. You use the exclusive link down below to help support our efforts here at Plotlines. The link will take you to sheenrosaries.com. Be sure to use the code Plotlines10.
Yeah, Connor. So Tridentine Brewing really goes back longer than 10 years. So I'll really focus in probably on about a 10-year window, but I'll just give you the real brief history of Tridentine Brewing, which really goes back to my great grandmother, which is back in Prohibition, actually. So my great grandmother, actually my great grandmother, in Chicago, she had actually brewed beer in her bathtub in the 1920s during Prohibition. Not that I would probably drink that, to be honest. I think that the bathtub beer, it might be a little bit.
They might have cleaned it
sketchy.
before they brewed it.
Yeah, I don't know.
You never know. I mean, if that's all the beer you have options for.
You know what? You might, desperate times call for desperate measures. You might just have to have it. It's alcohol, right? It should just be self-cleaning. So no, but so that's where it started. But there's really kind of a gap between there and my grandfather. And so my grandfather, actually, maternal grandfather, was brewing in the 1980s and into the 1990s, and he actually taught my father, our brewmaster Jeff Alcorn, how to brew beer. And so they did that together as a hobby. But when my grandfather passed away in 1999, there's really a gap between that and 2013, where there wasn't really any brewing in the family. But when my parents moved out of their house, while we were doing that, we discovered all this brewing equipment that we had in the basement. I hadn't really seen it before. And so I asked my father at the time, hey, could you teach me how to brew beer? So it's a good bonding experience, do something more with my dad. And so from there, we just got started. Didn't have a name at the time. It was just a hobby, just getting together every few months and brewing beer. And so we did that from 2013 to actually 2019, relatively casually. We probably brew 3 to 4 batches a year. And
did you share that with more than just your family, with your friends too? Or?
Yeah, we did. So we'd share with friends and family, coworkers at work. But it was actually something that we weren't able to give out too much of it at the time,
right?
Because we were only brewing 5-gallon batches at a time, which seems a lot for one person. You think of oh wow, 5 gallons of beer, but it's really about
quick though.
It can go by quick, even maybe for one person. But when you think about it, it was probably 45 bottles, 12-ounce bottles for a batch, which is fine. But once you start giving it away to family and friends, it goes really quickly. And so we were doing it back then, but really it picked up at the end of 2018 into 2019. We made a conscious effort to go to the next level. So that period of 5 or 6 years, we were, even what my grandfather was doing was called extract brewing. And almost think of it like if you go to the store and you buy a cake mix and you make the cake from a mix.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. You did bake it. I mean, you could call yourself a baker, but you didn't really make it from scratch either.
Right.
You got it out of the store, out of a box. So that was kind of the equivalent of what we were doing before with brewing. And that's usually the first step for any home brewer, is doing extract brewing.
Okay.
But then we decided to take the next step and really start from scratch. So make our own recipes from scratch, start with the grains, actually even milling our own grains. So we decided to do that when my father had a bit more time on his hands. So he was planning on retiring at the end of 2019. And so what we did in 2019 is I actually started building a brewery out in my basement. So I opened up a cistern in my basement. I have an old Victorian house. I had an unused space. And so I opened the cistern up, cleaned it out. We planned it all out, bought all the new equipment. And so by the time my dad retired, we had a nice all grain brewing set up in the basement. And so really from there, it took off. And at the same time, actually, we decided to name the brewery. And so we went through many different iterations of different types of names. Obviously, Tridentine Brewing is not necessarily the most secular sounding name, but we went through even some iterations of maybe more secular sounding names.
Like what?
Yeah. Any interesting ones?
Oh, yeah, my father's favorite was Barking Weasel, was the name. Yeah, it was kind of this off the wall, unique, off the wall name. Actually, a lot of craft breweries out there have really off the wall names. Many of them, or the beers are off the wall have off the wall names. They're definitely like interesting. Something that really sticks in your mind. But for us, what we decided on was obviously Tridentine Brewing. And part of that, was for a few reasons. So the first reason was we wanted to do something a bit more meaningful than just a random off the wall name like I just gave you right there. Especially because, my father and I, our family, we'd been going to the traditional Latin Mass for the last 25 years or so. Actually, my father was a convert to Catholicism, and the Latin Mass had a big part to do with that, actually. So we wanted to really honor that and really brew for another purpose beyond just, hey, let's get together and let's brew and have bonding time.
Right.
Yeah. I think that our motto that we ended up landing on, which is brewing beer for the greater glory of God, really embodied that. So we wanted to do something a bit more. So we landed on Tridentine Brewing. And then from there, we've just been perfecting the craft ever since. So steadily brewing more and more styles, and really trying to send those beers off to different brewing competitions across the country. Some don't do so well, some do well, which is great, but it's really been helping us to really hone in the craft a bit more, and so that's been helping us to steadily improve along the way, as we even contemplate the possibility of going commercial in the future. So maybe that's something I should mention as well. Right now we're not a brewery that can sell beer. So since the 1970s, it's been legal in the United States to make your own beer. So it was illegal actually from a period from Prohibition until the 1970s to make beer at your house, despite what my grandmother was doing in her bathtub. But since 1978, it's been legal to brew beer at your own home, and you can give it away to family and friends. However, you can't sell beer. So there's a few reasons for that, but the primary reason is because the government likes its tax money, and so you have to have a license.
I knew he was an alcoholic.
Yeah, it's the government. The government wants its tax money, so that's the primary thing. And so
how do you get to that point where you can start selling then?
Yeah. So, really for us, it comes down to just primarily comes down to applying for and getting a commercial license.
Yeah.
Now that sounds very simplistic and simple.
Oh, I'm
and
sure
it
there are
is,
hoops and stuff.
yeah,
that you have to
there's
go
some
through.
hoops along the way, but it really comes down to, let's just say, at the scale that we're at right now.
Sure.
So I talked about 5-gallon batches before. That was what we started out with. Right now we're making 15-gallon batches, which is about 150 bottles per batch,
Mhm.
which sounds large, but when you start giving it away, it's not really that large.
Mhm.
And if you think about selling it, okay, that when it takes
That'll
about,
go quick.
it goes quick. And for the amount of time invested, it could take, let's just say 20 hours to do a batch of beer.
Wow.
So when you think, well, it was 20 hours, we got 150 bottles out. That's great for a hobby, but those bottles better be worth a lot to make it worth selling something,
Yeah.
especially when the cost of the license can be thousands of dollars a year. So you have to think of all these things about, okay,
Right.
the cost of the license, you have to offset that, being ready to be audited at any time by the health department. Theoretically, even the Food and Drug Administration or the FDA can audit breweries now. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. And so probably before going to that next step, making that a large financial commitment to make it worthwhile, we'd have to really expand the brewery. And so we're just, right now we're looking at perfecting the craft and then contemplating that next step. But to answer the question, John, yeah, it really theoretically is as simple as getting the license, but there's a lot of other considerations in there to really make it worthwhile.
I have a question. You talked about sort of making, what is it, grains or milling your own grains? Is that what it was?
Yes.
It just sounds very monastic in a sense, like very, like self-sustaining, that type of thing. Is like, is that something that you thought of when you had to do that, or is that just so common with brewing that that's just normal?
Well, so the monastic part, so when we started brewing, it didn't really strike me till later, I guess. So the really strong Catholic history of brewing, I've been learning more about it the past few years. When I started brewing, I definitely knew that the monks brewed beer, and there was a long history of that through the ages. But now it certainly has struck me a bit more about the role that the monks have played and the long history there. But in regards to, I guess, like you mentioned, Connor, starting with the grains from the very beginning, what kind of drew us to taking that next step to go from an extract kit to all grain brewing was you really have that, how do I say this? Like you are really able to create the entire beer from scratch. You like have this sense of ownership, like this is like truly mine, that I'm able to do something from the very beginning. I'd also say you have more of that connection to the land, to all the ingredients that come into the beer to make it what it is when you really start from scratch. I mean, I probably would have more of a connection if we grew our own grains or our own hops. I don't think many brewers actually grow their own grains, their own barley, although some grow their own hops. But you really have more of that connection, really, even to what God has given us, all these ingredients, and being able to put it all together. It's much more tangible, and you have much more of a sense of accomplishment. I probably have a better word to describe that, but yeah, you really, it's much more real and tangible when you start with the grains from the very beginning.
It really does seem like just something that would make you feel really good about making it, and really having sort of all the ingredients, and just, I mean, it kind of I think it's cooler sort of than being like a chef or something, because it's, I don't know, there's something about beer, in my opinion. Maybe it's just because it's so masculine, in a sense, that it has that effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, I mean, there are definitely some parallels to what what chefs do, and they're able to come up with this creation. You have really a certain sense of pride in your work and what you're able to accomplish and create. But certainly with beer, I would say, not that plenty of women haven't brewed throughout history, but certainly there's
Grandma.
if you'd ask any grandma,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's true.
There you go, right there. But certainly I would say that it probably attracts more men, of course. Beer does. And so it definitely has that more that masculine vibe to it than other types of beverages. And I would even say, for beer, what's interesting there is whenever I talk with coworkers or family or friends about what we do, there's always like there's always an interest right away about when you mention beer. It's like, oh wow, it's just like this like mysterious thing when you start talking with them about brewing, and most people don't know the process or anything. So there is like that shroud of mystery there. But most people like beer, especially men. And so when you mention beer as well, it's really got that certain aura to it, and people are kind of drawn to that. Unlike maybe something else, if I was to say, oh, I run a company, it's called Tridentine Bakery or something. I mean, people would appreciate that, but it's probably not the same mystique to it than brewing beer.
Yeah, they might want a cake once in a while, but that
Yeah.
that's not the same.
Exactly.
Well, everyone has an oven. No one has like beer equipment in their house. It's standard.
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, it's just very interesting process, and just such a really something that not many people do, I feel like, especially sort of the way you guys do it, sort of with that Catholic connection, especially since you're not monks. You're not monks, but you're also doing this sort of this brewing, but in a way sort of to I don't what's the right word, to use your faith in such a way. And I think that's just really cool. But we were talking with Dr. Staudt last week, and one of the things is sort of fraternity, just men and their relationship with each other. And this isn't fraternity because it's your father and you brewing together. And I think that in itself is just another kind of relationship that is perfect for brewing, drinking beer, and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so a few things. So first of all, brewing is actually, it's something that, well, home brewing, at least in these United States, is something that's really taken off, certainly in the last 20, 30 years. So I think that there's upwards of, actually there's over 1 million home brewers in the United States. So quite a few. Now that could be people that just brew occasionally, or maybe they bought a beginner homebrew kit and they practice a little bit. Probably not the level that we're doing it, my father and I and my brother. But certainly I would say, in regards to what you mentioned about that bonding there, fraternal bonding together, even in brewing the beer. Obviously you can have that in drinking the beer as well, certainly. But brewing the beer, if you're ever interested in any type of hobby, with any friends or anything else, brewing is fantastic for that. It's a great bonding experience. I highly recommend it. And really, it's not that difficult to get into it. In fact, you could start home brewing for as little as right around $200, even for a fairly nice beginning kit to start out with for extract brewing. And you can go from there at your own pace. And so obviously we took 6 years to get to all grain brewing. I mean, some people go even start right away with all grain. I wouldn't recommend it, but some people do that. They're very brave, just jump right in the deep end. But really, the sky's the limit in regards to what you can do, how complex you want it to be, where you want to take it. And so, yeah, for anyone that's out there that's interested in it, definitely recommend it. Don't be intimidated by it. You can do it. It's not too difficult.
Yep, and share the beer with us.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
It's good to know, actually. I was kind of interested in this. This would be great.
Yeah, and speaking of beer and sharing beer, we're John and I are lucky to have the ability to try some of Tridentine Brewing.
Yeah, we have a couple of the bottles here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Jersey, it's coffee.
Well, that's what
infused beer.
I'm drinking tonight, actually.
Oh,
I got some Jersey right
cheers.
here.
Well, you
Yeah,
know,
Let's
cheers.
go.
Yep. Need to stay awake
Mhm.
for this podcast.
That's right. This will do the trick.
Mhm.
Yeah, a little bit of coffee in there.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so well, first, thank you. We want to thank you for sending it our way, and let's just say all your beer is very good. So,
Yeah, tasting has been amazing. It's great. And I love all the variety you guys have. It's unreal. I was wondering how that works. Like, how does the process work for like changing from beer to beer? Like, what do you change in the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, first of all, I'm very pleased to hear that you both are enjoying the beer. And actually, to me, that's one of the number one things that I enjoy personally about brewing is not so much about me enjoying the beer as others enjoying the beer and actually hearing that feedback. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So
no problem.
the beer, though, in regards to the variety, so really it's impacted by a few things. So going from one style of beer to another style of beer, depending on what it is, really could include many different factors. So it's not as simple as, okay, well, we're going to use a different type of barley or a different type of hop, and voila, we have a totally different style of beer. It's typically not how it works. So let me give you an example, though, of beers that are relatively close in style versus beers that are, way different. So, for example, the difference between a Märzen and a Vienna lager is really just the grains that are used. They were both developed in the 1840s by brewers that knew one another, actually, and they're both lagers. It's really just a different grain bill, just slightly. That's really the only difference between the two.
Right.
But once we start looking at other beer styles, so let's just say an IPA versus an Imperial Russian Stout, there's a pretty immense difference when we start talking about that. The grain bill could be completely different. So when I say grain bill, it's the type of barley. There could be some wheat in there as well. But the type of barley primarily that's used, the type of hops, there's many different varieties of hops. But obviously with an India Pale Ale or an IPA, it's much heavier on the hops. You're looking at magnitudes larger in the hops additions that you're doing. But I'll also say, besides from just ingredient changes or differences in ingredients, even the process can change between different styles of beer. So, for example, if you're brewing a Russian Imperial Stout, you might have to boil that stout for, let's just say, 3 hours versus 1 hour for an IPA. And that's just to boil the liquid down to have a more condensed starches so that the yeast has more to consume that creates a higher alcohol content, because Imperial Stouts can have 10% plus
9, 11,
yeah, exactly, absolutely. So John, if you've had some,
I've had some Imperial Stouts in my
Imperial
day.
Stouts, no, I'm
like Dragon's Milk is like 11% or something. It's crazy.
Yes.
But that makes more
Dragon's
sense.
Milk's
It takes
fantastic.
a longer time to, I guess, ferment it, maybe not the right word, but like get that high alcohol content.
Exactly. it takes a lot longer just boiling that water down, the wort, and then you have a more starches there, less liquid, more starches, and so you're able to come up with higher alcohol volume. So not to get too much in the weeds, Connor, with that one, but yeah, there could definitely be some wide variations in between one style and another. However, I will say generally the process stays the same. So even though there's these variations between certain types of ingredients or even certain parts of the process like longer boil time, the fundamentals always stay the same. So once you learn how to brew, it's the same pretty much the entire time for all the beer styles that you could possibly brew. Some variations, but once you know it, you know it, and yeah, it's not too difficult to switch styles.
Makes sense.
Gotcha. What is the future of, or what kind of beer, I guess I should say, do you intend to brew in the next couple months?
Sure. So first of all, I would say for anyone interested in the beer that we have brewed in the past, we've got all our beers listed at tridentinebrewing.com. So check that out. We have 10 plus beers listed there that we've brewed with a description of the beer. So you can check that out. In regards to the next few months, so the next beer that we have on the docket that we have yet to brew is a beer for the Mass of the Ages documentary, which I'm sure most of your audience that's listening has hopefully seen the first episode of Mass of the Ages.
Yeah, if they
would
don't,
highly recommend that.
They're missing out. I will put a link in the description for I mean, it's not yours, but it's but everyone should go watch the Mass of the Ages. So yeah.
Yeah,
We'll also link your website. Don't worry.
Well,
Thank you.
so that doesn't need to be stated.
So yeah, so Mass of the Ages, as you said, Connor, it's fantastic. Highly recommend it. And episode 2 is coming out soon. And we are actually partnering with them to brew a Mass of the Ages beer. And so that's going to be coming out here in the next month or so, where we're going to be brewing the beer, and we're going to be brewing a Belgian wit beer. And Belgian wit beer, for those that are watching, just so I can relate it back to a style or a type of beer that many people might be familiar with, it's like a Blue Moon. And no, it's not going to be exactly like a Blue Moon. Hopefully it's much higher quality than a Blue Moon.
Won't have to add an orange for that extra flavor.
Exactly. So a Belgian wit beer, or a Belgian white beer, or a wheat beer is a monastic style beer. So for the Mass of the Ages, we wanted to tie it back to the monastic tradition of brewing, because obviously the Mass of the Ages is focused in on our rich liturgical history, that's stretches back, it's really to the beginning of the church when we're talking about the ancient form of the Mass of the Roman Rite. And so we want to tie that back to the monastic tradition. So we're brewing that Belgian wit beer. So that's next on the docket. We're also looking in the next few months to brew a porter, a Baltic porter. And so we're going to be brewing specifically Stella Maris Imperial Baltic Porter. So it'll be high in alcohol content, and we're really looking forward to that.
Exciting.
We're partnering with Baritus Catholic. You may be familiar with some of their illustrations. I'd highly recommend you check them out on Instagram. They have a Twitter account. Chris Lewis is the illustrator, does an amazing job. So he has an image of Stella Maris, or Our Lady Star of the Sea. So that's going to be our headline image. And my brother, who does all of our graphic design, he's going to put the whole image together. So if you see any of our graphics, if you go to the website, you check out the beer, the labels, that's all my brother Cameron's work. And usually we have an artist that does the primary image in the label, and then Cameron does the rest of the label. So really looking forward to that Imperial Baltic Porter as well. So those are a couple that are coming up, but we we also will periodically add in even more beer. So we're coming up with our beer calendar for the next year. So my father, our
That's amazing.
brewmaster, is going to come up with the full list of beers we want to brew. Very much so like the church's liturgical calendar.
What I was
Beer is
thinking.
very almost liturgical, and a lot of that has to do with the Catholic Church as well, and the monks, for example. So, for example, Doppelbock is German beer, was brewed really during Lent or for Lent, consumption during Lent by the monks. There's other types of beers as well that go with the seasons, but beer typically has a certain cycle that goes with it. So, for example, you don't typically want to reach for a Russian Imperial Stout when it's 100 degrees outside and you've been outside mowing the lawn. You typically would want a bit of a lighter beer. So it just works itself out even that way, that typically you'll have lighter type beer during the summer, your pilsners, your kolsches, and then in the winter, for example, you have your stouts. So it's very cyclical in a way. And so we're trying to pair the beer schedule with that as well. So we're making that right now, but we always have fun coming up with our new beer names along the way and styles of beer. So that's a fun process in and of itself. Sometimes we have styles that we are just looking to brew that maybe we haven't brewed before, and then we try and pair that with something either American patriotic or something that has to do with the church, a saint in particular, or maybe it goes the opposite way sometimes too. So sometimes we know that, okay, we want to brew a beer for Our Lady under this title or that title, for example, and then we'll find a beer to pair with that. So it goes both ways. So it's always this constant process where we're looking at new beers, and then what do we want to pair that with, from a style perspective, or a saint, for example. And so it's always a fun process coming up with the new beers and the new styles.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about the Hopsburg Vienna Lager. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Great little magnet that Trevor sent us.
Yeah, yes. I got the sign as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sent us that too. It's so amazing.
It's awesome.
First of all, thank you for that. But I absolutely love the whole concept of the Hopsburg. For a while, I did not notice that it, I think when I first checked it, I didn't realize it was Hopsburg. I just assumed it's
little pun.
Habsburg, and I just wasn't seeing it. But the pun is absolutely great, and but also just Blessed Charles is pretty awesome. And will you speak to your devotion to him and why sort of that came about?
Yeah, of course. So I've had a great devotion to Blessed Carl now for over a decade, actually. So I initially developed a devotion to him while I was going to the university, and I've always been really big into history, into politics. In fact, at the time while I was going to the university, I ran for and was elected to a local seat on my village council. And just even doing that process, it really made me think about, okay, who could I look up to in regards to, Catholic saint, for example? Certainly amongst current day politicians, there's certainly not very many good Catholics. Just looking at our president and speaker of the House for a good example there. But even historically, just tried to look back and see, who's a great Catholic leader, and there certainly are many. But with my love of just World War I, World War II, I stumbled across Blessed Carl, and from there, I just really became enamored with him, and not even just the political. For me, I was drawn by the political aspect and him being a great political leader, and especially as the peace emperor, and doing everything that he possibly could to resolve that conflict peacefully. So need to pray for him now, certainly with everything that's going on in Europe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I will say that also drew me to other aspects of him, as a husband, to servant of God, Empress Sita, to his many children, as well as a father. So there's many different aspects that really speak to me, as well as a husband now and as a father. I wasn't at the time, but so I've had a really great devotion. It's only grown throughout the years. And so to tie that in with the brewing, when we started brewing, I thought, okay, how can we brew Blessed Carl beer? And so in 2020, we decided, or I pitched the idea to my father, well, let's brew a Vienna lager. What better beer to brew for Blessed Carl than a Vienna lager? Vienna being the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Holy Roman Empire. And so we decided on that, and then came the name. As you mentioned, Connor, it was the pun that I came up with the Hopsburg. Obviously, hops are a big component in beer, and brought that together with the Hopsburg name of the imperial royal family. Funny aside for you, I did send the magnets that you have of Blessed Carl. I sent it initially to Archduke Edward Hopsburg, Ambassador Hopsburg. I sent it to him in Rome, because he is the ambassador for Hungary to the Holy See. And what's funny is I got a response from Archduke Hopsburg. It said, "Oh, I love the label. Just to let you know, though, I think you spelled Hopsburg wrong." And so he said, the way it's spelled, it looks like it says Hopping Castle, and in German. And I said, no, it's actually a pun. So he's like, okay, I think it's funny. I think it wasn't as funny for Archduke Edward, but
maybe went over his head a little.
It went over his head. The language barrier.
Yeah,
but,
well, I mean, he speaks English, but it's probably not his first language.
Yes.
But that's so cool. It's cool that you got a response from him.
It was great, actually. This past year, we were greatly honored to go to Washington, D.C. for the feast day of Blessed Carl, which is October 21st, which is the wedding day of Blessed Carl and Servant of God, Empress Zita. And so we were able to go to Washington, D.C. We brewed a batch of beer. We drove it out from Illinois over to Washington. And we were able to also meet with Archduke Hopsburg, which was fantastic. That's great
really
experience.
Cool. And I would say he's a modern day quality leader, for the laity and for just, general politics. But yeah, Hungary is one of the more impressive countries, I would say, at the moment.
Yes, Hungary and Poland definitely really stick out as one of the last great Catholic bastions that are left standing right now. And absolutely, in regards to Archduke Edward Hopsburg, I definitely admire him. Certainly, if you follow him on Twitter, anyone that's out there listening, you know that he's a great example just from Twitter. But I can say from meeting him and hearing him speak in real life that you're absolutely right, Connor. He's definitely a model leader, I would say, and a model Catholic.
Yeah, that's just amazing to. It's always been a dream of mine to meet a Habsburg. So if that one day happens, that would be fantastic. But for you, that it's just amazing. I've also talked to Charles Coulomb, but you're just one of the additions of people who have met Habsburgs that I now know. So it's kind of it's like how close are you to Kevin Bacon or whatever?
Exactly.
But how close are you to a Habsburg?
Well, you know what? Since I know we're both located in northern Illinois, I know that when St. John Canches, which is also a shrine to Blessed Carl, they've got one of his first class relics there at the church.
Which one? What is the first class relic?
I don't know. What part of Blessed Carl is actually there? I just know that there is a first class relic there.
I'll have to find it.
So yeah, it'd be a good thing to ask one of the Cantions regular that next time you're there. But typically when they have on the feast day, so October 21st, St. John Cantius has usually a special mass, and sometimes one of the Hopsburgs actually comes to St. John Cantius. So keep that on the calendar. I know sometimes a princess has showed up as well, of the Habsburgs and some of the families. So you might be able to meet one here in the future.
Bourbons will show up too.
That's right.
But yeah. So we've talking about Blessed Charles. What are your favorite saints, and have they all inspired beer, or working on that, or what?
Yeah. So not all of them are saints yet. So Blessed Carl is a good example of one that's not a saint yet. We've also done one beer for Venerable Fulton Sheen. So we've done a Life is Worth Living Irish Red Ale. There you go.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I have a great devotion to Fulton Sheen. Actually, my firstborn is named Fulton. I actually went to a university that is, we have a lot of tie-ins to Fulton Sheen as well, besides from just greatly admiring all of his work. So the university that I went to used to be a Viatorian college. It was actually the college that Fulton Sheen went to. It's now a Protestant school. So I went to it as a Protestant school, Catholic going to a Protestant school, but I was on the same campus, I should say, going to college that Fulton Sheen was at. So he was in there, in the teens. So I think he graduated there in 1918, I think, at the university, which was St. Viator's in Bourbonnais, Illinois, which is now Olivet Nazarene University. But who knows, maybe Olivet will switch at some point. We'll when everyone becomes Catholic again, maybe it'll be
they actually
Viatorian school again.
canonize or bless Fulton Sheen.
Yes.
Might revert back to their old ways. Yeah.
So hopefully that happens at some point.
Miracles.
It could always happen. And so the other saints, that I have a great interest in are St. Pius X, St. Therese of Lisieux. There's a few others as well. Father Augustus Tolton, who is also venerable. Actually, I
thought he was blessed now.
He might be blessed. I thought he was venerable, but I could stand corrected on that one.
I don't know. I feel like he's blessed by this point, but I could be wrong too.
So we'll take that and we'll run with it. So blessed Augustus Tolton, who's a first African American priest in these United States, former slave out of the Archdiocese of Chicago. If anyone who's listening to this hasn't heard his story, please look it up. Funny tying to the university, since we're all bringing this back together. He was at Father Augustus Tolton, or Blessed Augustus Tolton, was actually visiting St. Viator's College the day he died. Actually, he was coming back to Chicago. He went to St. Viator's for a conference, and on his way back, he passed away of a heat stroke. So, but in any case, I would like to make a beer for Augustus Tolton. Haven't yet. And there's a few others, some of my father's favorites. So we've ended up working in. So St. Francis de Sales, for example, we did a beer for St. Defender of the Faith. That we've got Defender of the Faith, Holy Hefeweizen. Yes. So my parents go to the Institute Christ the King, and so we want to do a beer in honor of the Institute and St. Francis de Sales. So we have along the way. We're expanding the collection of beers that we've done in honor of various saints, and so it's a slow process. We're getting there. So I have my favorite saints, and then my father and other family members during the naming process that I was telling you about, and how we come up with new beers. We want to make sure that we hit all of our favorite saints. So very slowly. You'll see more and more saints. So if you see a new beer out there for Tridentine Brewing, it's for a saint, there's probably a very good possibility that it's a favorite or particular favorite saint of our family.
Yeah, that's a great way to honor them, I think.
Absolutely.
Saint Wenceslas, he has his own beer. I really like that one. There's some also that just the song in general I think is fantastic. So I feel like that's a perfect Christmas beer. So and also I believe Blessed Augustus Sultan celebrated his first mass in St. Peter's Basilica. So he's a really impressive he was a really impressive man, and he was educated far beyond most priests today, and probably a lot of priests even at that time, because he knew like 4 or 5 languages.
Yes, and as you just mentioned, Connor, like he had to go to Rome in order to even become a priest and get his education, because no diocese in the United States here would actually take him because of the discrimination against him. So yeah, his story is incredible. Like all that he overcame, obviously, just from going from slavery to a priest, the discrimination that he faced even within his parish, for example, although he had a very good priest actually that looked out for him and his family. But when you hear the story, it's beyond impressive. So yeah, absolutely check out Father Augustus Tolton. My family is actually on the guild for his canonization effort. So it's near and dear to our heart as well, because my parents have been really involved with his canonization effort now for some years.
Yeah, it's just really cool.
I kind of wanted to go back to the sort of the design process of all these labels, because people should really check out their website and what they show these labels, because they're unreal. The artwork is amazing. But a couple of them that stand out to me are obviously the patriotic ones. And if you can tell, my shirt is this is who I'll be voting for next election process. But you also have a "Make Christmas Great Again" little Donald Trump label there. So I thought that was perfect, and I had to wear this shirt in honor of it. But you also have 2 labels: the Second Amendment IPA, and then you have the I guess the Quartermaster Jerry. But on it's the USS Cromwell, and then there's this photo of this young sailor. And I was just wondering what who that was, and like what's the inspiration behind these very patriotic labels.
Yeah, absolutely, John. So let me go ahead and start with the Quartermaster Jerry Pale Ale. And so right on that label is actually my paternal grandfather. So my father, Jeff, who's our brewmaster, that's his father.
Okay.
And so my grandfather was in the U.S. Navy in the late 50s, into the 1960s, and he was actually on the USS Cromwell, which was a destroyer escort. And so we decided to brew a beer in my grandfather's honor. He loved beer as well. It was of a much lighter shade, so Busch Light primarily.
Yeah.
I know Busch Light well, because we're in it seems like this, at least the area of Illinois that I'm in Busch Light purgatory, where all the neighbors and everyone loves Busch Light. But my grandfather loved Busch Light as well, and so we wanted to brew something in honor of him that was about as light as you can get, which is actually a blonde ale. It's called. That's a style name, and so we brewed that in his honor, something palatable that he could drink. He passed away about 7 years ago, so pray for the repose of his soul if you would. But so we wanted to honor him, and to your point about the patriotic beers as well, and it kind of ties in with that. With many breweries out there now, it's a lot of the breweries focus on very leftist causes, definitely not patriotic, that's for sure. And most of what they do, I will say there's a very small smattering of patriotic breweries out there in the United States. To keep in mind, there's something, I think the last time I looked, there was maybe like 8,000 breweries in the United States. So there's quite a few. So for me to say, oh, there's no patriotic breweries, there are a few, but it's few and far between.
Yeah.
So, beyond just the Catholic angle of it, we wanted to also focus in on patriotic beers. So some beers in honor of some of our family members as well. That's where the quartermaster Jerry ties into that too. But certainly to be able to honor the country. So that's where the Second Amendment, New England IPA comes in, as well as the fun Donald Trump beer. So yeah, we had a lot of fun brewing that as well, and we've had a lot of interest in the label there.
Yeah, I'm sure. And yeah, I mean, part of the main part of being Catholic is being patriotic, is loving your country, and so some people make that sacrifice to serve it, and so I commend your grandfather for that. But I mean, these labels are absolutely awesome, and hopefully I get to try these someday. I'd love to. These are really cool.
Absolutely, John. Well,
I've also
hopefully
noticed,
we can have you out.
Yeah,
you and Connor out to the brewery, and
one day if we're lucky.
That's right. Put you to work, and once you put in the enough work that day, we'll be sure to compensate you with some beer. Yeah.
Perfect.
Makes sense. Yeah. Also, is there any particular reason for the St. Bridget
Lake of Beer?
Lake of Beer, or
the Irish Stout?
Irish Stout, yeah. So
you have a little Irish in you?
I got a little Irish in me.
Okay.
Actually, on both sides of the family. So we got the Catholic Irish on my maternal side, and then I've got the Scotch Irish, so the Protestant Irish on the father's side of the family. So yeah, we definitely wanted to brew some type of Irish stout last year in the run up to St. Patrick's Day. And so initially the thought was, well, we could brew St. Patrick's stout, and I love St. Patrick, so I don't have anything against St. Patrick, but we dug a little bit deeper into just Irish history with beer, and then we ran into St. Bridget, who's actually co-patroness of Ireland with St. Patrick. And St. Bridget actually has a very famous poem that's attributed to it. It's like a poem prayer about the lake of beer. And this lake of beer is really this vision that St. Bridget had of heaven, is this lake of beer, and everyone enjoying beer in heaven, drinking out of this lake that was pure beer. And so we thought,
thing ever.
It's the most Irish thing ever, right? And so we thought, wow, that'd be so great to brew a beer for that. And so from there, that's what sparked the idea for the beer. And I will say, shout out, I mentioned Baritus Catholic. So this is Portraits of Saints. The artist is Tracy L. Christianson. She does phenomenal work as well. So recommend checking their site out on Etsy, and they have a website as well. But it all came together, and my brother Cameron did a phenomenal job with the rest of that label, and the rest is history.
Do you work with them? Have you worked with them?
With Portraits of Saints?
Yeah.
So I've worked with Tracy specifically. And so Portraits of Saints is a family business. So Tracy's is she creates all the works of art, and then the family helps run the business for Portraits of Saints. So we will work with Tracy on different types of artwork that we'd like to use for the beer, and then come to an agreement on what we'd like to use, and then from there I'll explain briefly the label design process. So once we actually have a main image that we're able to use, then I typically work with my father and my brother, come together, and we have certain requirements for what would we like to include in the label. For example, what is the color scheme that we would like to use? Is there any specific wording or verbiage that we'd like to put in? And then my brother Cameron does his magic as the graphic designer, and he puts something together that's beautiful. And so it all worked out with the St. Bridget's Lake of Beer Irish Stout.
Yeah, no, it's great. Also the Our Lady of Mount Carmel, what is it?
Yeah, it's the brown ale.
The brown
Mhm.
ale.
Yes.
What about what's the sort of concept for that? Where did that come from?
Yeah. So that one too features another piece of artwork from Portraits of Saints.
Mhm.
And that one actually has an interesting history. So it was actually something that we brewed for my cousin's wedding last
Oh.
year. And
Oh,
so
That's really cool.
it is really cool. And we had a great time. We actually brewed 2 beers for his wedding. We brought it to the reception. So we've been really great friends with my cousin, Bill Mobus, whose the wedding was for Bill and Angela. And we did a little bit of digging into their history and how they met. And Angela actually, so she's from Carmel, Indiana. Now, the name Carmel, Indiana, which is a suburb north of Indianapolis, it's actually not from Our Lady of Mount Carmel, but it ties in nicely. So there's an Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Carmel, Indiana, and that's where Angela went to church routinely. And actually, that was where my cousin Bill actually proposed to Angela at the grotto there.
Wow.
So there's a lot of tie in there. So we thought,
Mhm.
well,
Yeah.
what better beer to bring than Our Lady of Mount Carmel?
Mhm.
Now, the brown part, obviously, it all kind of fit together very nicely. So
Yes.
Right.
obviously, brown has a really prominent role in the color for the Carmelites. Not only the habit, but the brown scapular, of course.
Mhm.
Being that Saints Our Lady came and visited St. Simon's Stock and gave him the scapular in England, a brown ale is a traditional English beer. So it all fit together, melded together perfectly for Our Lady of Mount Carmel brown ale.
Providential. It's all.
It was
all-
providential.
Yeah, a lot of these seem to just tie perfectly.
Yeah.
This is great.
It either is just super providential, or you guys are just that creative that you just put all that together. And I feel like it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Mhm. You might run
Well-
out of beer sooner or later. But yeah, I think you have a lot going for you right
Maybe,
now.
yeah.
You know what though? The nice part about the beer, you might think initially like, how long can you keep this going with the beer names?
Right.
How many beer styles are there?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's actually,
Honestly, though, the beer styles. So I think that there is. Okay, so there is a for beer competitions. There is an official beer guide that's used and a judging standard. And I believe in the judging standard, there's 80 different unique styles of
Okay.
beer that can be brewed. But even within those styles, there's sub styles.
Mhm.
And then even within some styles are so open-ended that you can do unlimited variations.
Right.
So let me give you an
Okay.
example. We've brewed a Kolsch, and I know I'm saying it wrong. Someone that speaks German is going to say that was totally butchered it.
Mhm.
But I'll just say Kolsch. It's a beer style from Cologne. It's a little bit lighter
Yeah.
beer.
the
The
Christ the King.
beer.
Christ the
is-
King. There we go.
Great
So that's
design.
great design. It has some of Baritus Catholic's artwork on there,
Oh, okay.
front and
That's-
center. So shout out to Chris Lewis there for that one. So we've done a straight Kolsch with Christ the King, but we've also done variations. So the coffee beer that I'm having here, which is our Jersey 1683 coffee Kolsch, we actually put in coffee beans, almost like cold brew process. We put
Right.
coffee beans into the Kolsch after fermentation was done to impart a coffee flavor. We
Mhm.
also did that with tea leaves with our Jasmine Spring Kolsch, which is just jasmine tea leaves that we put into the beer post fermentation to impart a tea flavor to the beer. So there are all types of variations, even like that within style.
Right.
We did 3 beers right there with one style of beer,
Right.
and so it has almost unlimited variations that you can do.
Yeah.
And when you think of the rich history of our Catholic Church and our faith, and even when you bring in other aspects like, our country even,
Mhm.
then there's about as many different beer styles and flavors that you can possibly think of that you can create.
Yeah.
That's lucky.
We got a friend of mine. She's not a really big beer drinker, and we were trying to persuade her that way. So we got her a book for her birthday. It's like 1,001 beers, and I couldn't believe how many just like beers there are out there, and then just like the different styles I just never even heard of. So it's amazing.
It's never ending, and I will tell you what, when I started, when I really started to get into knowing a lot more about beers, investigating beers, yeah, it's just shocking. There are so many different types of beers and styles that you've never even heard of. Especially in America, you might be exposed to a certain particular styles of beers. Absolutely. And then all of a sudden you really get into it and you're just shocked at all the different variations.
Yeah. Also, it seems to me, I don't know if I could have not been paying attention as prior, or missed something, but it seems like you really popped up on the scene, at least like in Catholic, like Twitter and social media, just kind of recently. So I was wondering sort of what brought that about, what made you want to start like sharing your brewing online and stuff like that.
Yeah. So yeah, as you mentioned, Connor, it's been relatively recently that we started posting things online. So October of 2021 is when I really got the social media accounts up and running. And I got it up and running in part, was forced to, because we brought our beer to Washington, D.C. and I wanted to make sure we got the pictures out there for that.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But one of the main reasons why I wanted to put it out there is for a few reasons. So, and this ties in with why we even have it named as Tridentine Brewing. What is Tridentine Brewing even about? So the first reason is to honor our faith, and we're brewing beer for the greater glory of God. So we wanted to just put all the artwork and the designs out there, and what we're doing, because it just might be of interest to others that are out there. Certainly it seems to be of great interest to us. Before we did anything with social media, it was really of great interest to any of our family or friends or coworkers what we were doing. So we thought, well, it might be of interest to others if so far just passing around the beers, and we had the nice labels even before I put anything out on social media, and it got a lot of attention. So we thought, well, I think a wider audience would probably appreciate this. So we wanted to put it out there. Another reason, though, is just to show or showcase, what possibly could be done if someone wanted to take a hobby and really use it for their faith, for example. And again, it doesn't have to be just a brewery. I mean, you could take anything. It could be from, your musical talents to maybe you sew or woodworking or whatever it is. And then you can really take that and transform it into something else. Not that it needs to be about, religion 100% of the time or anything like that, but really you could use it in a very positive way to promote the faith and evangelize. And I say evangelize a bit loosely here, maybe more plant the seeds of the faith in someone's mind. So it's really to draw attention to not just what we're doing, but even the possibility of what you could do. I mean, not just both of you, but I mean just generally people out there. Just because even in the past for me, I've thought before I did the brewing, what are ways that I could spread the faith. I mean, there's your example, what you're doing in the workplace and in your community. Obviously that's huge. But I was even thinking for myself, what are other ways that I could help spread the faith? And so, once we started doing it, I thought, well, this is a really good way, or a way, I should say. And so it's nice to be able to just plant that seed in people's mind in a way that honestly people don't even know it maybe till afterwards, because our brewery is not really called like Catholic Brewing Company or something like that. I mean, it's Tridentine. Most people don't know what Tridentine is if they don't go to the Latin Mass. And so it's a nice intro to get beer into someone's hand, and then they might even be interested, especially if they're non-Catholics, about, okay, what is this? What in the world is Our Lady of Mount Carmel? Or who's Fulton Sheen? And it opens up a nice dialogue with that person to explain to them, oh, this is who Fulton Sheen was, this is who Our Lady of Mount Carmel is, and this is what the brown scapular is. So it's a nice way to be able to spread the faith. So it's good to show others out there, not just like a glorification of Tridentine Brewing, not really why I put out the social media stuff, but just to be able to show, like, here's a good example of maybe just an idea of what could be done to help spread the faith.
Sort of speaking of helping, I know we can't buy your beer, but is there any way we can support your cause?
Yeah, John. So first and foremost, I would say prayer, and I don't mean that, just like the reflexive response. No, just like sincerely. I think for us, certainly prayer, even if we don't do anything commercial ultimately, but certainly that's first and foremost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But beyond that, so right now, as I mentioned, we're not selling the beer. There is a possibility that could change in the future, that we are seriously looking into avenues in which we can do something commercial. In the meantime, probably what we're going to do, because there is such an interest in even the label artwork, is this year we're looking at just opening up an online store, probably on Etsy, where we'll sell some of the labels, maybe some of the tin tacker signs, so
t-shirts, maybe
some t-shirts, maybe. Yes, so have the full lineup out there.
T-shirts, again, please do that.
Yes.
That would be so great.
I know I'd buy one for sure.
Me too. I'd buy a number of them.
Well, you know what, John, you got the Jesus shirt on, so you have to
Not
wear that
far
all
off.
the time now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so t-shirts are definitely on the table, but other things. And really, that's, first of all, it's not a way for me to like make a buck. I mean, I probably would rather not do the online store, but there's been so much interest in it that we'll probably do something. I can't continue to give everything away for free, so it could pay for itself. But some of that money that we have that comes in over and above, just reimbursing the cost of making the goods, we'll go right back into the brewing operation, and potentially expanding to do something else. So I would say that's probably beyond prayer. That's kind of the next step, is support us online. Feel free to buy a t-shirt, or some magnets, or a tin tacker. That'd be fantastic. And beyond those two things, if we decide to go commercial, I'm sure I would put it out on social media. But if you're certainly in Northern Illinois, whatever we do initially is probably going to be relatively local. Right. And so if you're local to Northern Illinois, we'd love for you to purchase the beer if we get to that point, to help support the brewery.
Absolutely.
Do what they do with Spotted Cow. Can't get it anywhere outside the boundaries of Wisconsin. Yeah.
Exactly.
You might have people traveling to Illinois, and if you ever go commercial to get the beer. Yeah. John, do you have anything else?
No.
I feel like I think we should wrap up. Do you have anything else, Trevor, to add that you want to plug or anything?
So, a few things. So I know that I don't know what you're planning on, or what you can put in the show notes, Connor. But
you need.
Yeah, so I can give Connor some links then to a few of the things that I'm going to mention. So if anyone was interested in trying some monastic beer, that you can order, because I know Tridentine's so exclusive that you can't even buy it.
It's so good you can't get it.
It's so good you can't get it. But speaking of monastic beer, you can buy monastic beer. So you might potentially have a local monastery near you, which you can buy beer from. But you can also mail order in most states. I say most because not all states allow mail order beer shipments, believe it or not.
Right.
but you can get them from a few places. So there is a Trappist monastery in Massachusetts called Spencer Brewing. You can buy beer from them, order it online. You could also buy it from the monks of Nursia in Italy. They actually have the beer available here in the United States. And so you can order from the monks, support the monks. So I'll plug the monks there for at least a couple breweries. I would also, I'll give Connor some links to just basics of home brewing. And so if you listen to this and you're thinking, oh, wow, this is great. I'd love to get into, dip my toes in the water, get into some home brewing, then I'll provide some links for that and where you could buy some of the supplies, as well as just watching or some videos that you could watch on how to home brew, because it can be intimidating the first time, but there's really great videos online on step-by-step process. It'll just walk you right through it. So I'll provide that. So I would say if anyone has any type of inkling to homebrew, go for it. It really doesn't cost that much to at least start out, maybe a couple $100, but my opinion, well worth it. And then you can get going on that. But lastly, as I mentioned in a previous question, and I'll end here, just as we're doing with the home brewery, just think about what hobbies or skills that you have that you could even use to plant the seed of the faith in others. Again, you don't necessarily need to be getting your bullhorn and standing on the street corner and proclaiming the gospel. It's just little things, and you're probably already doing it now as well, just in the way that you live your life and being a witness to other people. But just think about that. If it's even okay, you're great at sewing, and you can help create vestments for mass, or you're great at woodworking, and so you can create some type of sacred art, or whatever the case is. Just contemplate that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be brewing or anything like that, but it's a good thing to mull over and think about, because there might be something that you're already doing that you can use that as a way to spread the faith to others.
Yeah, that was wonderful, Trevor. Thank you for being on. It's really an honor to have you here, and it's wonderful speaking to you. I wish you all the best luck, and we'll be praying for you, of course. I think I'd hope for commercialization in the future, but whatever the Lord has for you, I think will be pretty exciting. So thank you everyone for watching. Have a wonderful evening or the morning, depending on what time you watch this episode. But John, do you have anything I want to say last?
No, thank you, Trevor, and thank you for the beer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Connor. Thank you, John. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So please like, share, subscribe. Really, we won't be able to keep doing this unless people show that they want more. Just like with Tridentine Brewing, support is the best thing you can show any of us. So I will also put in follow Trevor on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that at Tridentine Brewing. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye.